The best video games often shine as a sum of their parts. The pieces line up just right and everything falls into place. It's usually a matter of finding the right balance, and in that regard, Spirit of the North falls flat. One can quickly see the draw of its visuals, but past the exterior is a game with a lot to be desired. Though the adventure starts off kinda like Journey, it slowly evolves into a flawed puzzle platformer. The game has you playing as a red fox who encounters a fox spirit who happens to be the guardian of the Northern Lights.
Aurora Borealis? Aurora Borealis!
Painfully vague, the narrative often left me wondering what was going on. Admittedly, one can definitely piece together a story, but the lack of clarity leaves far too much open to interpretation. There are cutscenes that progress the story, but even then, it was difficult to process exactly what was happening. Plagued by extreme minimalist storytelling similar to past titles I've reviewed, Spirit of the North delivers a narrative hardly worth telling and even less worth trying to figure out. Undoubtedly, some players will find joy in digging deep into the environments to find some semblance of a story, but most will just breeze past them without a second thought. Diverse, visually pleasing levels provide a solid backbone to the appeal of the game. Inspired by the beautiful landscapes of Iceland, the game is at its visual peak when presenting its gorgeous fields and mountains. Without a doubt, the visuals are one of the strongest aspects of the experience. Spirit of the North captures the beauty of nature through vibrant landscapes that captivate and impress. Even on the Nintendo Switch's technically challenged hardware, the strong visual aesthetic of the environments shine through. However, despite that, texture pop-in and shoddy fox animation commonly occur. Speaking of the Switch port in particular, Chapter 6 was unplayably dark on the dock system, so I resorted to playing the level portably with the Switch's brightness maxed out, and even then it was still a struggle. The darkness compounded with the general maze-like levels to deliver the ultimate sense of confusion and discomfort. I compared the visuals with footage from the PlayStation 4 release, and it looks like the shaders were put on full blast for the Switch port. Luckily, this issue mainly occurred in just that chapter. On the Switch's screen, the background seemed to be more blurrier, but overall, Spirit of the North is very playable on the go. Though it's not particularly ideal for portable play in terms of mechanics, it's a neat visual treat nonetheless. Mechanically, the game starts from almost nothing in a sort of walking simulator fashion, and builds puzzle mechanics from the ground up. The fox gains new abilities every so often that make the awkward traversal more bearable and puzzles more solvable. Levels containing blue flowers can provide energy for our fox protagonist, resulting in some cool fox tats. Tediously, the only way to extract the energy is to bark at a flower, which prompts your fox spirit partner to make it open up. Even the very act of explaining it comes off as needlessly tedious. This energy can be used in multiple ways for puzzle solving. The fox can transfer this energy into stone tablets in order to open doors or move buildings. Another use for energy is a sort of energy burst that happens to eliminate some pulsating red growth that occasionally acts as an obstacle. The key word being some, as it often isn't clear what growth is destructible besides the UI popping up to tell you it is. Sometimes, I would use the energy burst on red growth and it wouldn't break, adding to more lovely tedium and guesswork. Finally, there are 2 supplemental abilities available when fox-tatted, including the ability to fox dash as well as astral project your fox to get to hard to reach areas. Though astral projection is a neat feature, each projection only lasts a short amount of time, which goes against the slower, more investigative nature of the rest of the game. More often than not, I'd have to re-project multiple times in order to solve a puzzle or gather enough visual detail to understand what I needed to do next. This added to the tedium factor, further testing the limits of my willingness to continue. Sadly, without guidance, guessing became a common occurrence. Oftentimes, the lack of clarity in what to do next or why something wasn't working the way it should was not exactly clear. This resulted in a strange wandering limbo, as I wouldn't be sure if I was missing a power-up or where I should go next. One feature that would have helped immensely would be a system similar to Dead Space's deck navigation, which shows the player where to head if they're lost. Admittedly, it is a form of the often maligned handholding, but considering how overwhelming the level design gets in Spirit of the North, it's a well-justified form of handholding. The devs even have this form of guidance in one of the levels, but the vague Aurora Borealis didn't seem to represent where to go next at first. Only after wandering around and wondering what the heck to do next did I realize the error of my ways. This system didn't immediately scream guidance, as I initially thought the goal was to light up all the statues and didn't notice the northern lights seeping out. Levels often require some light platforming, which just feels bad as maneuvering the fox never feels right. For such a nimble creature, the fox's movement is stiff and awkward. Oftentimes, it felt like jumping from one platform to another was uncertain, as it was hard to judge exactly how far the fox could go. When it comes to platforming games, the joy of movement is key, and Spirit of the North really fails in that regard. If the game kept playing like a sort of journey-like, this wouldn't have been too big of an issue, but as it is now, I dread having to play those puzzle platforming sections ever again. Dull in execution, Spirit of the North delivers levels that feel messy, confusing, and directionless. Topped off with bland puzzle design and painfully slow movement speed, the gameplay was a real chore to get through. Our foxy protagonist has an invisible stamina meter that often made the game even more tedious than it ought to be. Either for the sake of realism or to pad the game out, the clumsy movement ultimately doubles down on the tedium factor. Luckily, one of the unlockable power-ups is the aforementioned dash move that happens to speed up traversal immensely. However, it's obtained late into the game, and as mentioned before, it's tied to the fox having fox tats. Though playable, Spirit of the North left me feeling utterly underwhelmed and dissatisfied. The core issue I take with the game is its overly pretentious approach to design. More often than not, it's a title that values visuals over functionality. The lack of most UI or explicit player guidance ultimately hurts the experience way more than it helps. Spirit of the North feels like a game that relies too heavily on its visual appeal, while tackling gameplay as more of an afterthought. Many subtle issues in animation appear on occasion, highlighting a lack of polish. Visually striking yet mechanically dull, Spirit of the North is all style and no substance. Tied with a minimalist story and no spoken words, the journey tries to be meaningful, but its self-imposed limitations make it hard to understand. It's loaded with vast, beautiful environments which end up functioning as a double-edged sword, as many areas felt labyrinthine in design. Oftentimes, the game felt pretentious to the detriment of the gameplay. Padded, tedious, and often mechanically misguided, Spirit of the North's issues bog down the experience to the point where I find it difficult to genuinely appreciate at all. Ultimately, Spirit of the North has its appeals, though I'd only recommend it to players hypnotically drawn in by either the Iceland-inspired aesthetics or the ability to play as a fox. Thanks for watching the review. If you enjoyed it, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. The original review was written for DarkStation, and I was provided a review copy. If you want more, here are some of my other videos. Anyway, I'll see you all next time when I break down how the fox is my personal spirit animal.